Okay, guys, I told you that I would tell you what the event we're going to later on today. Julie should be on her way home. The event we're going to is a Dave Ramsey money and marriage event. So I don't know if you're familiar with Dave Ramsey. Dave Ramsey is a money guy. This event is the two speakers are going to be Rachel Cruz, which is Dave's daughter, and Dr. Les Parrott. I think that's how you pronounce it. And he is a marriage guy. I guess he's like a marriage counselor or something like that. Now, just because we're going to this event does not mean that we're having issues with money or our marriage. We've heard Rachel speak many times in other events. But we've never heard the other guy, Les Parrott. I think, me personally, I think that you should learn as much as you can about many aspects of your life, your money, your marriage, whatever, whether you're in a mess or not. So this whole thing that about hearing a guy that counsels marriage or some woman that is talking about money, how to succeed with money, it's just what do you call it? Maintenance. I guess that's the best way of putting it. Maintenance. Sometimes you take your car in to get it looked at, even though it may not be broke. You take it in to get the oil changed just so that it doesn't break down on you. So this is just a maintenance thing that Julie and I do every so often. But like I said, we've never heard this Les Parrott guy talking, so this is going to be something new. But so you guys get to come with us. Well, I'll try to record a little bit here and there. I'm not going to record the whole thing. And I'm hoping that I just get some highlights for you guys. Excuse me. So you can see and understand some of the stuff that they talk about. So we'll see you there.
We're on our way. Kind of yucky out today. All of a sudden, out of the blue, it starts this rainy, sleet kind of stuff. Mother Nature is all kinds of confused. Could be springtime in Michigan, not like almost winter. It's not a pretty big tree, and it's pretty. Certain things are pretty. I like church
and George Camel.
We're live streaming this on your social media.
Yes.
Wow, that's a big honor.
Facebook. Yeah.
Unbelievable.
Fun night.
Well, to all the thousands of you watching out there, we so appreciate you being here, and we appreciate all these lovely people here in Grand Rapids, Michigan. We're gonna have a lot of fun tonight. Money and marriage, there's tension just in those two words. So I need to know from you two, how are we gonna ease the tension tonight, Les?
Well, we're going to get practical. We're going to roll up our sleeves and make sure there's takeaways. We're not just going to get up here and try to entertain you. Are you entertained? We are. That's a little inside joke. But that's apparently only funny to the two of us.
Only to the inside people.
We are going to get super practical tonight, that's for sure. And not only are we going to kind of talk about talking, communication, that's going to tee up some incredible conversations that we can have.
Yeah, so what you'll learn from Les, we'll dive right into how you have these money conversations with your spouse. There'll be 6 money talks that we'll go through tonight, and it's things that are real. It's probably some of the things that you have talked about with your spouse. Maybe some new conversations come out of this, and that's our hope, is just to start communicating when it comes to money so that you can practically put that into practice so that you guys as a couple can win financially.
Communication. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Les Parrott.
A conversational meltdown when you were talking about money? Raise your hands. And I want you to keep your hands up. At home, wherever you are, you can raise your hands. Look around the room. You see the people that don't have their hands up? What do we call them? That's right. Just want to settle that right off the top. Hey, I always like to know a little bit about who's here. Anybody engaged to be married? Stand up if you're engaged to be married, would you? All over the place. Look at that. All over. Congratulations, you guys. How about, are there any couples here that you're not quite engaged, but you're on the edge of commitment? And you'd like to make an announcement of any kind? He stood up and he stood right back down. I saw that back there. Hey, I want to introduce you to a concept that we call love talk, and the goal is to basically decode your conversations so that you can have the greatest conversations of your life. How's that for a promise from a speaker on a stage? I really do want you to have the greatest conversations, not just about money, but about everything. And to do that, you really need to understand how each of you is hardwired for a conversation, so we're going to get into that. But to kind of tee it up a little bit, this thing called love talk, let me ask you, what are the ingredients of romantic love? If you were designing a recipe for romantic love, what would be the things that would go into it? Just holler it out. Things, ingredients. What? Vacations, I heard a guy say. That sounds pretty good. What else? Time, patience,
communication,
listening, empathy, understanding, right? Lots of good things would go into our recipe on ingredients for romantic love. For the longest time, social scientists didn't have anything to say about this because they thought, romantic love is like not, it's not scholarly enough, too mushy to study that. That all changed about 15 years ago at Yale University when a fellow by the name of Robert Sternberg came along, did this massive study, came up with something he calls, you ready for this? He calls it the triangular theory of love. I was doing a little lecture series at Purdue University, and after I kind of concluded my remarks, and the last day they said, hey, would you like to have a tour through our research facilities? They have a brand new marriage and family division and facilities and so forth, research labs. And so I said, of course, and so we took this tour through there, and I said, what's the most exciting study again? Well, they said, well, we're just doing this longitudinal study on passion in married life. And I said, well, what's surprising you so far? Because that's always the most interesting thing about studies, right? They said, well, we knew there would be gender differences. We just didn't know how specific they would be. And I said, what do you mean? What did you discover? They said, we discovered that married men prefer to have sex on days of the week that begin with the letter T. Isn't that incredible? Tuesday and Thursday seem to top the list, as well as Saturday and Sunday. Today, tomorrow, Thanksgiving, just the tea days, right? Gosh. Hey, well, let me ask you this question. How many, as a married couple, how many of you have passion at a 10 out of 10 every day of the week, every week of the year, all your married life long? Can I get a witness, right? We don't have passion at that level all the time. We were never designed to have passion at that level. And yet I can't tell you how many times I've had a couple come into our office saying, hey, we've lost that loving feeling. And what they mean is we don't have passion at a 10 out of 10 every day of the week. Well, you're not supposed to. Sternberg, that even did this research, he said, we wouldn't get anything done if we had passion at that level all the time, right? Intimacy is that part of love that allows you to understand each other like nobody else on the planet. That I get you and you get me like nobody else. That we're reading off the same sheet of music. That we understand each other. You ever had this situation where, like, you're in a social setting, maybe at a party or a dinner gathering or something like that, and somebody says something, and the two of you just crack up. It's just so funny, and then you look around the room and nobody else is laughing. Just the two of you, right? That's intimacy. But let me ask you the same question. Do you have intimacy at a 10 out of 10? Every day of the week, every week of the year, all your married life long? Not if you're like most people. There's times I wonder, does Leslie even know me? How could she have thought that? How could she have said this? We have a lot in common. Similar heritage, similar values, similar dreams, same name. I mean, we got a lot in common. But there's still times I wonder, how could she even think that? Do you even know me? Now, if passion is biological and intimacy is emotional, commitment is willful. Commitment is that part of love that says, in spite of all the things in my life I can't quite pin down, all this stuff that seems to swirl about me, in spite of all that, I'm going to make one thing in my life rock solid. And that's my relationship with you. And where does that come from? Your hormones? Your emotions? No, it comes from your will. This is truly the part of love that is a decision. And let me ask the question one more time. Don't answer it, because I know how many of you will just answer by reflex, but do you have commitment as a married couple at a 10 out of 10 every day of the week, every week of the year, all your married life long? Most go, yeah, we got that settled a long time ago. I get that. That's the big I do. But there's also little I do's that infuse this commitment that you made. And it's not always at a 10 out of 10 because you have this incredible big project at work. You can hardly think about anything else until you get past that date. Or you're struggling with this medical condition. Or you have this issue with your kids. Or the game is on. Or whatever it is, right? And you get distracted from the big commitment, and not all your energy is going into it. And once again, Sternberg says, hey, this is just a third of what love is. Passion, intimacy, and commitment. In fact, the bottom line of all this research was to say that love is very, very fluid. Love is not a static thing that you fall into and you fall out of. It changes. There's an ebb and flow to it. There's seasons. There's passages to it. And the kind of love that you have tonight is not necessarily the kind of love that you're going to have 10 years from now, or 10 months from now, or 10 days from now. It's all about emotional safety, because when you can identify that for each other, it's empathy. Empathy, that capacity to see the world from each other's perspective. I wish we could box it up. I wish we could put it in a bottle. Say, hey, before you leave here tonight, we'll send it to you in the mail if you're watching at home. We want to give you a bottle of empathy. Can you imagine? That would be fantastic. If I had a bottle of that, I'd keep it on our kitchen table. I'd just keep it there for a conversation. I'd just spray it on Leslie. Everyone's like, you need a little more empathy. And she'd spray it right back at me. But we all need that capacity to see the world, to put ourselves in each other's shoes and imagine what it must be like to be lived in their skin. When you do that for each other, mutual empathy, life doesn't get much sweeter when it comes to having conversations about money or anything else in the world. In fact, in that little space, that little room, if you were to have that, actually a tangible room where you would have these great conversations, I think there would be a little placard over the entrance to it. And it would be this verse from 1 John where it says, there is no room in love for fear. Well-formed love banishes fear. See, that's what love does. I mean, that's what love talk does. It banishes the fear. It takes the fear out of the conversation so you can relax. You can be on the same page with each other and truly enjoy the greatest conversations of your life. That's why I call it love talk. Hey, you guys, thanks so much.
Ready? Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage my friend Rachel Cruz.
To be here, and for all of you watching at home, this is such a fun night. Did you guys enjoy Les?
Yeah.
So good, isn't he? Yeah, just brilliant. Every time we're together, I'm like, okay, just talk. You know, like I just like want to write notes all the time when I'm with him. He's so great. So yeah, this has been a really fun event that we've been able to take across the country, and I love that you guys heard from him first, because he really gave you the tools to understand, okay, how do I communicate effectively with my spouse? So now we're going to take those tools and implement it when we talk about money. And money and marriage, gosh, when I was getting ready for this event, I did all this research and was like really digging in. And I'll tell you, everything out there about money and marriage, it's pretty depressing. It really is. All the stats are like, you know, the money is the #1 source of conflict. It's the leading cause of divorce in America today. It's all this just negativity every time I saw it. And I was thinking, you know, it's so funny when you get married, right? When you got married with your spouse, you did not go in thinking, oh, we're gonna get married and we're gonna fight all the time about money and I'm gonna hide a Target bag under my bed so my husband doesn't see it. Like, we don't start off marriage thinking that, right? You start off in this blissful, almost giddy state, right? When you see that person. And then our first date, I remember so well sitting in the passenger seat of his truck and we were going to a restaurant. He took me out to get pizza. If you know anything about me, you know I wanted to marry him instantly, right then and there. And I remember thinking in my head, don't hold my hand. Don't hold my hand, because if he holds my hand, he's going to feel how sweaty my hand is. Because I'm so nervous, right? I mean, it's just those feelings, and I'm like, that, unfortunately, most of that kind of fades, right? Once you get married, and it's decades later, right? That little giddiness, it's gone. But it's substituted with a very healthy, more stable, more deep love that you have with your spouse. And yet, even though that's there, money still seems to be this point of conflict for us. 70% of Americans, or of married couples, argue about money. This is ahead of fights about household chores, togetherness, sex, snoring, and even what's for dinner, according to Money Magazine. So it's this constant conflict that we have. And it is fascinating that you can have a marriage where you have, you know, deep intimacy with your spouse. You have great sex. You agree on parenting. But money keeps coming up. And so now that we know that we have this issue, there's this problem, how can we solve it? What's the solution? Because we're going to walk through six money talks that are going to get you guys back on the same page and truly understand each other. Because these talks are going to hopefully start new conversations with you guys, maybe some that you've never had before, or it's going to just jumpstart ones that you've already had. And so these 6 money conversations really will get you guys on the same team. Because studies show that couples who regularly talk about money, they're happier in their relationship than couples that don't talk, according to the TD Banks survey that came out in 2015. And so, as we talk about this deepening, there's going to be moments that we're going to actually put this into practice, and I'm going to have you guys actually turn and talk to each other throughout the night. So just be prepared for that. So as we dive into the first money talk that we need to have, and it is called the story talk. The story talk. Now, why is this talk important? Because when you understand your spouse's money story, you will understand their heart like never before. And as a result of knowing that, all these other money talks become easier. Because you're going to realize that talking about money is often more valuable than money itself. And the story talk is really going back to how you were raised. And so Sharon Ramsey is probably the cheapest woman on the planet. Still to this day. And I don't know, I think it's naturally in her being to be like this, like, you know, saver, and she only buys things on sale. But her and Dad, they filed bankruptcy the year actually I was born. And so there was this pain point, really, right? This scar that is on their marriage forever. And so I don't know if some of that is still out of just that, I want to live, you know, below the means. So growing up, I remember going to the movies, and there was a deal going on at the time, probably still is, but if you buy an extra large popcorn bag, you can go back for free refills, right? And so we would go and buy an extra large popcorn bag at the movies. We would leave the movie theater. Mom would dump it out in the trash can, fold it up and put it in her purse. The next time we go to the movies, she'd take it out and she'd like shake it out. And she'd send one of us kids up to the front, to the concessions, and she's like, here, go get our popcorn. We did this for like decades, you guys. Decades. I mean, even to the point that one bag was so torn that our uncle was with us, and Uncle Mac went up to the counter, and the guy behind the thing was like, has this bag been used before? And my Uncle Mac was like, I don't know, I'm from out of town. Like, it was this thing. And so we were talking about it at dinner just like last year, and Dad had no idea any of this had been happening. And he was like, Sharon, you stole popcorn from the movie theater? Like for a long time. She was like, David, I did not steal, I was being economical. So as you start talking to your spouse about how they grew up, you're gonna find that more than likely you guys grew up different, right? For some couples, money, or for some people, money was a point of tension in their family, a tension, possibly a fear, a lot of fights, a lot of arguments. Some of you, money was talked about all the time. It was just not a big deal. One of my friends grew up like that. She said her dad would come home from work, they'd be at dinner, and her dad would openly tell her things like, oh yeah, okay, so we have 10 grand. What should we do with it? Should I reinvest it back in the company? I mean, they would just talk about it so openly. Some of you, you never heard zip from your parents growing up. Like nothing was talked about, right? And some of you, when it was talked about, it was just polar opposite. Like we grew up in the Ramsey household where it's like Satan was the worst thing ever, and then it was MasterCard, and then it was a car loan, right? I mean, like debt, it's not a sin. We say that, debt is not a sin. It's not a salvation issue. You can get to heaven with a student loan, you're okay. But it's this thing that it's just this deep conviction rooted in our family that from the moment I can remember, we were told, you avoid it like the plague. You don't ever, ever borrow money. I mean, the borrower is slave to the lender, and you'd have those chains that hold up. Like, it was just ingrained in my mind. So, again, for some of you, money was taboo. For others of you, it may not have been. I don't know, depending on how you grew up. So I think it is important for you guys to talk about this if you haven't already. And so our first talk starter, that's what we're going to call them, the 30-second talk starter, is where you guys are going to take 30 seconds, and I want you to answer the question. I want you to fill in the blank on what's going to be on the screen and talk about it to each other. So in this 30-second talk starter, answer this question. In my house growing up, money was blank. Yes. Okay, so as you start this conversation, again, you guys are going to dig deeper and deeper, because what's going to reveal to you is you're going to understand why your spouse sees and interacts with money the way they do. And this is a conversation you can't miss, okay? This is not extra credit, because everything else builds upon this. So this is such an important conversation to have. The conversation number 2, talk number 2, we're going to call this social talk. Social talk. And why is this important? Because you'll never be able to love your life if you keep comparing your life and your money to others. Because this comparison thing is so real, and it's so difficult to overcome in our world today. Because what you're going to find is that what you're comparing your life to, for a lot of us, is make-believe. It's not real. Because what you're seeing, whether it's the family getting out of the van at church and they're parading across, and they always look perfect. You're like, how do they always look perfect? Like, my kids are a hot mess, I'm a hot mess. Like, how do people do it, right? You see them, but most of us are watching them on our phones. And we're seeing them on Facebook and on Twitter and on Instagram and all these other places. And what's difficult is everyone, especially in the social media world, you guys, everyone puts their best foot forward. It's like the best part of everyone's life. And then, maybe you're on Facebook and you're scrolling through and you see your friends and they've just redone their kitchen. Oh, the kitchen renovation. You're like, man, now they have granite countertops. It's like, I've always wanted granite countertops. It's like Joanna Gaines just walked in and waved her magic wand. She's like, here, shiplap in the kitchen. Why not? Sure, yes, it's just beautiful. Everything's great. It looks so pretty. Or when someone gets a new car and they, of course they post it. It's like, oh, Always wanted a Mercedes. There they are. And I'm like, man, what's so hard about all of that is I'm like, you don't see the kids running around the restaurant screaming later that night. And as parents, we've all been there. You're like sweating and just trying to get the bill, right? And you're just like, oh my gosh. You don't see that. You don't see possibly the second mortgage that was taken out to redo that kitchen. And now the bills are stressing out that family. And you definitely don't see the 1990 Honda Civic with 300,000 miles. Put it on Facebook. You're like, oh, look what my hubby just bought me. Hashtag blessed. It's like, no, because that right there, that is real life, and that's what's hard. And so remember, when you're comparing your life to others, especially on social media, you're comparing them to make believe. But it so is in us in our world today. According to IBM, this is interesting. Close to 60% of consumers say that their social media feeds, their social media posts, influence their purchases. So what they're seeing, their friends, what they're driving, the vacations, the restaurants, the clothes, everything, it influences how you're spending your matches. And so because comparison, ultimately, what it's going to do is it's going to steal your joy and it's going to steal your paycheck. Because you're going to end up spending money, possibly that you don't have, to keep up this lifestyle that you think everyone else is living and you're the one missing out on. And so what comparison does is if you're able to beat comparison, if you're able to overcome that battle, it's amazing because then contentment happens. And when you're content, contentment is not apathy, or it's not just, oh, I'm going to just sit back and be lazy. No, you can be striving, you can have goals and still be content. But that contentment within your marriage and within your life will take you leaps and bounds when you are thankful for what you have. And that's what breeds contentment. It's one word: gratitude. Gratitude. Because in a heart filled with gratitude, you guys, there is no room for discontentment and comparisons. So for this 30-second talk starter, I want you to turn to your spouse and I want you to answer this. One of the things that I am grateful for that you probably don't know is blank. But that gratitude. Okay, so now that we know through the story talk where our spouse is coming from, now with social talk, we're focusing on our lives and our marriage, not what everyone else is doing, we're focusing on us. Now we can talk about some common fears that we can have around money. So talk number 3 is fear talk. And why is this important? Fear talk is important because when you identify your financial fears together, you instantly have more grace in your conversations. When you understand what fear your spouse has around this, you're going to have more grace in all the other money talks. 66% of people, according to Go Baking Rates, said that they have more fear of money than they are of crime, snakes, spiders, and even death. I was like, man. Yeah, and fear, what fear does in us, it creates crazy behavior, doesn't it? But isn't that interesting? I'm like, what fear causes us to do? And a lot of people, even within their marriage, it causes them to create bad habits when it comes to money. It causes them to get a secret checking account. It causes them to have their own credit card they don't tell their spouse about. It causes them to open up accounts and invest and not tell their spouse. I mean, it does. It creates this almost secretive part with your spouse that can be extremely, extremely dangerous. 1/3 of people say that they argue, a third of people that say that they argue about money have hidden a purchase from their spouse. And they hid the purchase because they knew that purchase would cause conflict. And so hiding things and being secretive. And so as we look through and say, okay, how can we untap this fear? And really for you guys to name, okay, what is my financial fear? And Les Parrott, his deep love assessment that he talked about earlier, he talks about 4 common money fears. So we're going to go through those because they're just so good and so revealing. And one of those, one fear is the lack of influence. The lack of influence. And I hear this a lot of, he's really good at money, and I'm gonna just let him do it. I don't really have a voice. I'm not gonna really speak into this. Or the guy says, she just goes shopping all the time and she does the grocery shopping. I don't know what I'm supposed to do over here. I don't know. And one of those is that in your marriage, you have got to change your pronouns. It is no longer my money, her money, his money. No, it is our money together. My friend Chris Hogan says we need to be more French. Oui. We together. You are one in every aspect of your marriage, including your money. It is our money. It is our debt. It is our retirement accounts. It is our money. Change your pronouns. Also, a way for you to have influence is to budget together. Budget together. It's amazing how many couples, one of them, and I get it because one of you is probably better at budgeting, quote unquote, than the other spouse. And one of you probably enjoys budgeting more than the other spouse. How many of you in here love the fact I even said the word budget? You're like, yes, the part of the event I'm invading. You're like, yes, I'm so good at this. Everything's organized. You're like, okay, we're coming to the event. It's open seating. We need to get there early. If we get there before the doors open, then we can get closer to the front. I mean, you're just an overall organized and control person. How many of you are that? Yes, we call you the nerds. It's just like, yes, we're right here together. All together, yes. Okay, and then your other spouse, more than likely, because opposites attract, one of you we call the free spirits. The other one, yes. Oh, I have an enthusiastic free spirit. She's like, it's me. Yeah. Okay, and that's me. Winston's the nerd. I'm more the free spirit. So let's hear that. Just more of the free spirit in the room. Usually we get some woohoos from the free spirits. Yes. Okay, so what you're going to find is that the nerd, more than likely, is just like, let me take care of the budget. I can do this because it'll be right when I do it, right? That's more of the nerd because they got it all under control. They know what's going on. But free spirits, you have got to put your influence when it comes to the budget. You have to sit down again because it's y'all's money. You guys, your money together. And to sit down and say, okay, where is our money going? And do it every month before the month begins. Sitting down together. If there's something that ends up happening that we need money, that we just don't have it. It's that lack of security, that security gland is just there. It's like, oh. And so, tactically speaking, again, a way to overcome that on the surface is, number one, get an emergency fund. Together, save up $1,000 for an emergency fund. Then get out of debt together. Focus on getting out of debt and then bumping that emergency fund up to 3 to 6 months of expenses. And that plan, just those three things together, we teach this in Financial Peace University. If you've been through that course, you know. It transforms so much of your life. So go through that if you haven't already. Because what it does is it maps out that plan, and that lack of security suddenly has this foundation under it of not just money, physical money, but also the sense of, okay, we're in this together and getting on the same page. But the lack of security is a big one for people. Also, for this 30-second talk starter, I want you to answer this. My top financial fear is blank. My top financial fear is blank. Now, talk number 4 is dream talk. Dream talk. And why is this important? Because shared dreams bring us closer together. When you share a dream, you work as a team. And as a result, you're creating a clear accomplishment together and a future you can agree on. And so some of you, your fear may not have been the not realizing your dreams. Some of you didn't raise your hand for that one. But whether it was your fear or not, this is something that is so important for couples. For you guys to get on the same page and to really, ultimately what it is it's having this goal in mind. Because when you can agree on where your money's going, you're agreeing on more than just money. You're agreeing on those goals in life, those dreams and those fears. And so that dream idea that we're going to come together and get on the same page about where we're going as a couple is so key. And this is a big part of marriage, you guys, because this is the fun part, where you get to sit down together and say, hey, what do we want our life to look like? Like, what do we want to do together? What do we want to do with the kids? What do we want to travel? What do we want to do? What are our dreams? What are our goals? And so when you look at, when it comes to dreaming, you can really break it up into 2 sectors of dreams. So I always like to say your short-term dreams, to have one or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 together, and then your long-term dreams. So your short-term dreams are going to be 5 years or less. 5 years or less. So maybe your dream is that we want to be completely debt-free. Maybe that's a dream for you guys. Maybe it's we want to be able to give more as a family. Maybe it's we want to take a beach vacation and pay for it with cash. Short-term dream. And then your long-term dreams. And these are fun to think about. Where you're like, okay, it's 5 years and off. So it's not a reality today, but man, what do we want to do? What do we want to do in the next 5 years? This could be everything from I want to retire. Maybe in the next 5 years you're at the point you're like, I would love to be able to retire. Maybe it's you want to completely pay off your house. Maybe it's you want to move. Winston and I, we have a dream. I don't know when it's going to happen. We would love to build a house one day. It's something that we both would love to do. So have that dream and sit down together and talk about it. Because if you haven't talked about this stuff in a while, you're missing a really fun point in conversations. Because we get so bogged down, don't we, with just getting up, getting breakfast, getting the kids dressed, get them off to school, you're going to work, you're coming home, you're making dinner, you get them ready, you get baths, one's peeing on the carpet, diapers aren't on, you're like, okay, you're here, you get them in bed, one of them's screaming, you gotta go back up the stairs, come back down, and then you're like, oh. Anyone else? It's like, that's life, right? And it's fun, and it's beautiful, and there's the great times in it. But sometimes it's like, okay, I just want to look at you and can we just like dream and just think, what could we do with our lives? Where could we go? What could we do? And sit there and dream together. So for this 30-second talk starter, I want this to be an individual one, actually. So I want you to answer it for you, because your spouse may have never heard this before. So I want you to answer, one of my biggest dreams is blank. And share that with your spouse. Talk number 5 is the giving talk. Giving talk. And why is this talk important? Because giving changes you. Giving changes you. And as a result, you'll live a more fulfilling life, and the trust in your spouse will build. There's so much when you start to live your life as a giver. A Duke University study found that when you are a recipient of a good deed, you have momentary happiness. But you have long-term happiness when you are the giver. Now, for a lot of people, giving is a challenge for them. Whether you're kind of more in the boat of just like, oh, it's just not a big thing for you, you kind of feel like, I'm going to hold things a little bit closer. Just the idea of like living with an open hand makes me nervous. I don't know, it's just not my thing, right? Some people just have a challenge with it, emotionally and spiritually. Others, it's a challenge financially, where you say, I would love to give, but we just don't have the money. We just don't have the money. So I would tell you guys, if that's you in here, my stance on this is clear, because I think giving should be a part of your life no matter who you are. So I always tell people to give a little until you can give a lot. Give a little until you can give a lot. John D. Rockefeller said that I never would have been able to tithe the first $1 million I ever made if I didn't tithe my first salary, which is $1.50 a week. So starting somewhere, no matter where you are. And to put yourself in a position where you can give. But the challenge as a married couple, what you may find, is that when it comes to giving, one of you may be more of a calculated giver, and by that I mean that's more of Winston, where we've been very intentional with our giving, and at the beginning of the year we say, okay, here are the things we're going to give to throughout the year. So that time, when I'm at Kroger, I'm like, do you want to give 25 cents to help some orphan? I'm like, oh, maybe, I don't know, you like start to feel guilty. I'm like, no, the guilt is gone. We've already allocated our giving, and this is what we're doing. And that was really one of Winston's big things. It's like, I just want to know who we're giving to. I mean, Winston researches this. Like, places we give to, he calls, he finds out who they are, what they're doing with the money. I mean, he is so invested because he so believes, which I agree totally, that everything that's given to us, we are a steward of what God's given us. We do not own our stuff. We're managing it for God, and if you're going to be a good manager, you're going to do your due diligence and research and find out things about places that you're giving God's money to. And so he's just a very, very, very calculated giver. So how many of you, maybe not to that extreme, but you lean more towards, you're more of a calculated versus a spontaneous giver? How many of you are more calculated? Yeah. Now, your spouse, possibly, is the opposite. A little bit more like me, where I'm a little bit more of the emotionally led giver. You see something, you're like, oh, okay, okay, y'all give it, it's just a quarter. Yeah, take a quarter. You know, or I see someone on the side of the street, I'm like, oh my gosh, I come home, like, okay, we need to give to the rescue mission. Like, I feel this just, I'm very, very emotionally led when it comes to my giving. How many of you are that? Yes. So what can happen is that can really create a source of tension and conflict within your marriage, where you're both coming at it from great places, but the way you're doing it is different. And so to recognize and see and embrace those differences, but to know it's there. And so for this 30-second talk starter, we just did it. Shoot, sorry guys. It's gonna have you raise your hand on what you are, but do it anyways with your spouse. Talk about it. Are you calculated or are you emotional? Talk about that for that talk. And all these talks are so key and so important, but this last talk might be one of my favorites, and that is grace talk. Grace talk. And why is this important? Because we've all made money mistakes. We've all made mistakes with our money. And as a result of that, we can learn together from those mistakes. And some of them may be small mistakes you've made, some of you huge, big mistakes. But no matter where it is, you have to have grace for each other. But overall, again, remembering for each other that to have that grace in the conversation, because you don't, of course, want to take advantage of having those same mistakes over and over again. But I heard a local pastor in Nashville talk about the difference, I loved this, the difference between mercy and grace. And if you are a Christian here, then those are two words that I feel like sometimes are just interchanged a lot, but how different they are. And I love this, because grace means, if you can imagine, mercy, it's defined as your punishment is eliminated. So whatever was supposed to be your punishment, with mercy, it's eliminated. With grace, not only are you saved from your punishment, but you're blessed in the process. And if you can imagine having that much grace with your spouse, because we're all going to screw up, but having that much with your spouse. So this 30-second talk starter is one that we're actually not going to do right now, because I want you to do this in the car on the way home as you drive home together, to answer this. When I make a money mistake, I love it when you blank. So wherever you are, I want you to grab your spouse's hand. Grab your spouse's hand. And I want you to think back in that first time when you saw them, even the first couple of dates when you were dating, before marriage was even in the picture, but as you guys were dating, and remember that feeling and why you fell in love with your spouse. And to think what brought you guys here tonight. That together as a team, not only do you want to do better in your marriage, but also when it comes to this element of money and coming together and saying, we're going to do this. Because no matter where you are financially, no matter where you are on the marriage scale, how good or bad you are, you can say on the scale, I don't care. No matter who you are, as you're sitting in here tonight and as you're going home, if you continue to dig into these conversations, continue to take the tools that Les talked about and communicate more effectively. If you can take this and say, we're going to get on the same page when it comes to money, and we're going to be motivated together as a team, what you guys can accomplish for the rest of your lives is absolutely amazing. Because with money and marriage together, I believe it's a combination where all of you, no matter who you are, you can flourish and work together as a team to win. Thank you, Grand Rapids, so much. Thanks, you guys, for watching at home. It was great.
Grand Rapids, you have been incredible. We appreciate